can operate my computer, which is not always a thing. So I'm going to go over biomes now. And so the Alliance Biospecimen Management System, or BioMS, is a web-based application that has been designed to support biospecimen tracking, inventory management, and reporting for Alliance clinical trials and all the companion correlative studies. So BioMS is based on the functionality and user interface of the existing CalGB specimen tracking system, which was also known as STS, but we incorporated many new usability enhancements and capabilities to support the operations of the Alliance Biobank Network. So BioMS is used for NCI trials and for AFT trials. So AFT trials would be like AFT05, AFT16. The NCI Alliance trials, examples would be like AO1106 or the old CalGB studies. All of those would be under one of those two biomes. So AFT biomes and biomes are separate applications, meaning you're going to use different URLs to access them, but they function the exact same once you're logged into them. To access the application, so if you're going to access biomes, which is what we call it for the NCI trials, you can access it from the Alliance homepage, the CalGB page, our Biomes Confluence page, or you can simply use the URL biomes.wesel.edu /biomes login. To access AFT biomes, that has to be done through the AFT portal. And once you're in through the portal, you can pick the biomes tile, and that takes you into the application. To log into biomes, you have to have a valid CTAP IM account, and you're going to use that username and password to log in. So you need to make sure you're on your site's roster. Once you're on your site's roster, you see all trials, all patients your institution's participating in. To access AFT biomes, this is done through AFT tech support. So for the AFT trials, you will submit, there's SIS documents that get submitted to AFT tech support. It indicates which trials and that you need to have biomes access. So AFT biomes, your access is trial dependent. If you need access to AFT16 and you're not on the SIS document, you can't see anything for AFT16 when you're logged in. Also means you can't pick AFT16 kits. So make sure for each study you need access to that you're listed on the SIS for AFT. Okay. When using either of the biomes, whether it's AFT biomes or biomes, please make sure you're using Firefox or Chrome. Do not use IE. Biomes and IE are not friends. One day it will let you log in, the next day it won't. You will call me, you'll be all upset, you can't see the screen right. Very first question I'm going to ask you is, are you using IE? And then I'm going to tell you to stop it. So make sure you switch to always using Firefox, Chrome, or Safari to access the applications. The logging of biospecimens into biomes is a prerequisite for shipping to any Alliance biorepository, assay lab, or AFT biorepository associated to the NCI trial or the AFT trial. So here are the different login screens. The next several slides we're going to go through are how to use the application. So I just wanted to show you the difference. If you're doing biomes, which is your NCI trials, you're going to log in using your CTAP username and password, and then you're going to click I agree and log in. If you forget your password, I cannot help you at the help desk with that because this is all regulated through the NCIAM, but there are links on the screen for forgot password, all of that will take you to the NCIAM pages to help get your password reset, or if you need to do your annual registration, all of that's right there at the bottom of the page to help you get in. For AFT biomes, again, like I said, you're going to log in through the AFT portal using your email address and the password they've set up for you. It was limited on screen space. There is at the top of the screen after you're logged in, you pick which study you want to go to, whether it's AFT05 or AFT25, little trick of the trade. For getting to biomes, it doesn't matter which study you pick. You can pick AFT05. The main thing is when you get down to that application, you're going to click the biomes tile. Once you're in biomes, it'll show you every study that you have permission to see. So you can pick AFT05 and log your AFT25 patients too if you're doing both at the same time. So the main thing is just getting that tile to log in. Okay. Once you're logged in, so all of these screenshots are from biomes, but like I stated earlier, AFT biomes and biomes function the exact same way. It's just a little different icon in the corner. So once you're logged in, it'll show you at the top you're logged in with your username. To log specimens, you're going to start by clicking on Log Specimen. It will then bring up the page to search for your patient. I highly recommend always searching by your patient ID, and you'll get that ID once you've registered your patient, whether that's an open for BioMS trials or IRT for AFT trials. You have to do that step first, and then you can find your patient in BioMS. If you haven't registered your patient, I'm not going to have it here yet. So once you, it'll default to patient ID. You can search by their initials. I don't recommend it, because there's going to be a lot of patients in there, possibly the same initials. And you can search by the study. The easiest way is to do it by their ID. As you start to type in the ID, it's going to start to show you a list of things that match what you're typing. You're going to pick from that list, and then you're going to click the search button, and then it's going to return for you the patient's information, okay? So for NCI trials, a lot of them have embedded trials. So this is important in screen to pay attention to. If you are getting ready to log specimens and you know your patients and you have specimens for the ST1 component of the trial, that top line will show you like the main trial and the embedded trials with commas behind it. If you don't see that embedded trial listed behind it, you're not going to be able to see to log the specimens in the system because we didn't get that message. And that means something, when you're registering the patient, something didn't get checked and open indicating they said yes to these companion trials. If that happens, you need to go back to the registration office. They'll help you correct it. You can contact us and we'll help start that process for you too and get you in contact with the randomization office. So you want to pay attention here that you see everything the patient should be registered to. If they're on more than one trial, the next trial will be listed below it. So to log the specimens, you're simply going to click on the patient's initials for whichever study you need to log samples for, and that's going to take you into the checklist view. The first thing at the top of the screen is it's going to tell you again which patient you're working on and what study these samples belong to. Then the next thing that we're going to talk about are the epochs. So the epochs are these tabs across the top of the screen, and those contain different time points you're going to collect specimens. So for example, if on therapy you're going to be collecting it cycle 1, day 1, cycle 2, day 1, cycle 3, day 1, all of those would be located under the on therapy epoch. Next is the arm and the time point. So if all arms are collecting the exact same specimens we just listed out as all, if arm 1 is collecting different samples from arm 2 at different time points, then it'll say arm 1 and the time point and then the specimens. So BioMS will show you every single possible collection for the trial. So it will show you arm 1, arm 2, if there's arm 3. If your patient is arm 1, then you're just going to pay attention to the arm 1 events. You don't have to worry about 2 or 3. It's just we don't get information about which arm the patient's on, so we have to give you every possible option. And then the time point is there listed next to it. So in this case, on the screen, it's the pre-therapy collection. So all arms have the same pre-therapy collection samples. It'll then again tell you at the specimen level which study that sample belongs to. Next is the specimen title. So this describes what it is we're expecting to get, how much, what type of tube you're collecting it in, and how it should be submitted, basically. So in this example, it's a 10 mil ETA whole blood tube, and then parentheses, it says 1 times 10 mils, meaning we're expecting 1 tube with 10 mils of blood in it. If it said 20 mils of blood there, in parentheses, it'll say 2 times 10 mils. So we're expecting 2 tubes with 10 mils of blood. Okay. Next is the quantity, the actual amount you have. So it will default to the expected amount. If the patient was a hard stick and you only got 5 mils, then you would adjust this to 5 mils. We don't exactly, expect you to measure it out, but you can look at a tube and see if it's half full, that there's about 5 mils there. Okay. The next field is the date and time. So this is when that sample is collected from the patient. So if you had a paraffin block, you would enter the date that the patient had their biopsy or the date the surgery was performed. It's not the date the slide was cut, it's not the date you got it from the path department, it's the date the procedure was performed on the patient. Next is the specimen status. So currently this specimen is in a pending status as it hasn't been collected. Once you collect a specimen, it will go from pending to collected to in transit and finally stop with the received value from the repository. And then we have 3 icons. There's a clipboard if there's any comments you need to send. If the patient was a hard stick and only got 2 mils of blood, you can put that comment there. It'll show up on the packing slip for the repository. And then there's a not collected icon and a recollect icon, and we'll get into those a little more in a moment. The other thing you might see in your checklist view is a clipboard with an exclamation point. That means there's a mandatory form that has to be submitted. There is also, a lot of times, you'll have a primary specimen, and then there's alternates. So if you can't submit the primary, there are alternates. These will be tabbed in a little bit and listed under that. If you click on the specimen name, it will open up this field and it will show you instructions from the protocol, how to collect that specimen, where to ship it to, who it ships to, and what the recommended shipping methods are. And then there's that mandatory icon, and then when you click on that, it'll give you the form to fill out. Anything with a red asterisk has to be completed. And then you would hit save, and it would allow you to advance in the system. If you don't fill that clipboard out, it will not allow you to advance. So what we're going to do now is we're going to walk through logging a specimen. The first thing you do is check the box for the specimen, enter your quantity, how much are you sending. When you first check the box, it's going to default to the current date and time, which if you have blood samples, that's great. If you have pathology, you're going to have to change that. So you're going to click on the box, it's going to open up the calendar, you can pick the date, and then there's slide bars for the hours and minutes if you need to adjust that. And then you're going to click save. So once you click save, it's going to change to a collected status. So you can log everything on the screen and then hit save. You don't have to do it one specimen at a time. But if you have to change from one epoch to another, because sometimes you can see here there's 2 pre-therapy time points you're going to send specimens on, make sure you hit save before you go to the other epoch. Otherwise, it's not going to save anything you did on the screen, and you're going to have to start over. Okay? So I'm going to tell you the easiest way to ship specimens. Do you guys see that create button on the screen? Don't touch it. Never. I don't even know why it's there. You don't want to use it. All of the specimens in here are hardwired, who they should ship to, and how they should get there. So all you're going to do is check the box for the specimens you're sending on the left side of the screen. Everything that you just logged will come over to the screen. Leave it set to auto, and hit the green arrow pointing to the right. So basically you're telling the system, take my specimen and put it in a shipment on the other side of the screen. It will look to see if there's any existing shipments that match your requirements. If it doesn't see it, it will create it for you. So you don't have to remember, is it going to Ohio, is this an ambient, or is it a cold pack? It knows how to do it. And it will put it into the shipment for you. Then at the top of the screen in really, 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 really tiny print, it will tell you which shipment ID it put your specimens into. Sometimes specimens some have to be sent on cold pack, some have to be ambient, and if it needs multiple shipments, it will give you every shipment ID and put a sample in at the top of the screen for you. And to make things harder right now, we have a big yellow banner right there. So look in the yellow banner for your green print. I keep trying to get them to move that, but it hasn't happened yet. To make it easier for you guys to see it. And so what you're going to do is then you're going to find the matching ID on the right side of the screen. It has a little triangle. When you click on that, it'll open up and it'll show you the specimens in that shipment so you can verify still the same specimens. You didn't pick up any hitchhikers on the way, the specimens you want to send. So then you're going to click on the radio button over the picture of the open box, and at the top, then you'll click send. This will take you into the packing slip page, and you have to have this to go with your samples. It will default to your institution. If you're associated to more than one institution, that drop-down list will have all the institutions you're associated to pick. The address that will come in is the address on file with NCI or with AFT, depending which system you're in. And so sometimes that doesn't exactly match where you're at. You can type in that field and change it if you want. It will default to your name, and then you're going to enter your phone number and your email address. The middle column has all the information you already need. You don't have to do anything there. It's going to tell you which repository it's going to, their address, who the contact is, and their phone number. So if your packing slip says send this sample to Mayo, send it to Mayo. Don't send it to WashU. It knows where home is. Then you're going to pick which carrier you're using. Is it FedEx, UPS? Who is it? And then probably the next most important thing on this page is enter that tracking number. Because BioMS sends an email every morning to the repositories to say, hey, these are the shipments you have coming in today. And they use that to make sure all their shipments come in. If your shipment doesn't show up and you haven't provided a tracking number, they have no way to say, hey, FedEx, where's the box? So then your specimens are hanging out, and Lord only knows where they're having fun at, but it's not at the lab. And then the date that you're sending them. You always want to make sure that the packing slip you were sending exactly matches the samples you were sending in. If you were sending in 3 slides, it should not say a paraffin block. It should say 3 unstained slides. Okay, so you want to make sure they match. Don't send in extra processed tubes. The labs can't, if it's not listed here, the lab can't use it. It has to be on the packing slip. We've had an influx of processed serum tubes come in. We don't want the clot. It's going to go in the trash can. Throw it away at your site. So you want to make sure those match exactly. Once you have clicked send on that previous page, it electronically sends a message to the repository because they're going to use that packing slip to electronically receive it back in our system. And once you do that, it'll give you this finalized screen with a print icon. Don't screenshot the previous screen because you're going to get a nasty gram from BioMS when I have to go in and finish your shipment. It automatically sends out nasty grams. So make sure you do that. Then you're going to print a copy, keep one for you, send one off with the shipment. So I mentioned earlier, sometimes there are alternate specimens. The example would be blocks. They want a block to be submitted, but not all institutions will allow you to release the block. So typically there are alternate slide submissions that you can send in to still meet that requirement. So I'm using the A15-12-16 trial as an example. And so the primary specimen they want is the tumor block. If your site can't submit the tumor block, then you are to submit these 4 alternates. They want all 4 in this case. Sometimes you can pick 1 or 2. Always check the trial. In this case, they want all 4 of these. So those are the alternates. So to log that specimen, you first have to start by saying the primary specimen is not going to be sent. Because right now you can click all you want on these alternates and you can't do anything with them. So first you have to indicate you're not sending the primary. So you click the not collected icon, and then it'll pop up a window. If you're using IE, you get a blank box. Don't use IE. So then you're going to select why are you not sending it, and one of those is you're not allowed to release the block. Once you do that, the screen will refresh. It'll indicate that the top block is not collected, and then it activates those alternate specimens for you to log. And in this case, this study does have that mandatory form, so what I highly recommend is work one line all the way across. Don't fill out all this information and then come back to do all the clipboards, because every time that it tries to save one clipboard, it throws an error message for the other 3. And it's going to keep doing that cycle until every clipboard is done, and so that can get really confusing when you keep getting error message after error message. So work one line all the way across before you go to the next one. Oftentimes, you might need to recollect a specimen. And this can happen in the case where you've marked a specimen as not collected because maybe the patient missed the appointment, and now they've come in. You can still collect. You're still within the window. So you want to recollect that specimen, or you've already sent a specimen and FedEx played kickball with your box that day and the tube broke. And so now they're asking you to submit another one if you're still within the window to do so, if a specimen freezes in transit, or sometimes they need additional tissue for testing. So all different types of scenarios where you might need to recollect a specimen. So in this scenario, the specimen's already been sent, they need more, and they've asked for it. So what you're going to do is you can come back into your patient's checklist view, and you're going to use the recollect icon, which is the green arrows going round and round. And it'll ask, do you want to submit this again? You're going to say yep, or yes. And then what it'll do is it'll refresh the screen, and it will give you a whole new set of specimens to log with the little green swirly arrow. So that's when you know it's a recollected specimen. If you just had the instance where it was a tube of blood and you marked it not collected because the patient wasn't there, and you hit recollect, it'll just activate the line for you. If you've already shipped it and it's got a status, then you get green swirly arrows. So that's the difference in the two. Okay? So there are kits available for lots of trials. If they are providing kits, you will do that request through BioMS, and you'll do that by clicking on the kit request under tasks. It'll bring up the dashboard to show you any kit request you've ever made. Unfortunately, it only shows you what you've ordered. You can't see what your coworkers ordered, so you're going to have to talk to each other. And then you're going to start a kit request by clicking on Submit Kit Request. It will then bring up the page. First thing you're going to do is you're going to pick the study. Once you pick the study, give the system a minute because some studies have lots of kits to pick from, so it takes a moment to load up. the next field for which kit do you need. So pick the study, then you pick which kit you need. It will then tell you which repository is going to fill the request, what their contact information is, and what contents you're going to get in that kit. So sometimes if you're not sure what kit to pick, but you know what specimens you should be collecting, you can determine it from those kit contents. Next, you can indicate how many kits you need and when you need them by. The when you need them by is a reference for the lab. It is not a guarantee you're going to get them then. And also right now, I forgot to point out on the previous screen, there is a 10-day business day turnaround time from the time you place your request to you're going to get them. So make sure you plan ahead. If you get in a crunch scenario where your patient was put on, the PI had them come in, it's all last minute, you can request to have a kit overnighted, but you're going to have to provide your FedEx information to get that overnighted to you. Most of the labs have about a noon Central Time cutoff for doing same-day shipment. So if it's 3 in the afternoon and you're requesting to get it overnighted, the chances are you're not going to get it. Okay? Anything with a red asterisk you have to fill out. Patient ID is not mandatory. For some studies, the labs wouldn't send it out until you had a registered patient, so that's why that field's there. Then you will put, it will default to your institution. Again, if you're associated to more than one institution, it will be listed there for you to pick from the drop-down. And then the most important thing I can tell you on this page, make sure the address that shows up, which is going to come from CTEP, is the exact address you want the kit sent to, which most likely is not where you're at, because the address is usually very general for your institution. So update that field and make sure it has the exact address you need that kit shipped to, because whatever's there is where they're going to send the box to. And then this very bottom one right here is if you need the kit overnighted, then you'll put it in, your FedEx account number. And then there's a section for notes if you want to leave the lab a message. Once you hit submit, you will get an email, and it'll tell you that your kit request has been placed. The lab also gets an email telling them a request is there, and then that kit request will show up on your dashboard. While your kit request is still in open status, you can edit that request. So maybe you realize, oh, I didn't update the address. You can go back in and make edits to that. Once the lab has sent your kit, it will update to sent in the system, and you will also get an email stating your kit has been sent, so you're going to know when it's on the way. If for some reason they've denied your kit request, maybe you asked for 20 kits, and they decline it, again, you'll get an email stating it was declined, and the dashboard will update. So some quick tips. Like we talked about before, in order to collect those alternates, first you got to indicate those the primary specimen's not going to be sent. One of the forms in there that I kind of showed you earlier, it's asking for the surgical pathology number and block ID. We don't want you to enter the surge path number twice. If you look at the block, I don't know if you guys can see this real well, I've highlighted the first set of numbers, which is the surgical pathology number, and so that's going to go in that field. And the second field is that block ID, where what is this specific block in the pathology report. So don't put the surge path number twice. If you have a question about where your kit is, you can call me at the help desk. I'm going to tell you, I don't know, because I don't send them out. And I'm going to refer you back to that email you got that tells you who's going to send you that kit request. So if you want to cut the middleman out, it won't hurt my feelings, you can cut me out. And you can contact them directly to find out where your kit is it going to come in time, whatever question you have about it. Once your specimens are received in the lab, like I said, they receive it electronically. If there's something wrong with your specimen, you're going to get an email stating there was something wrong. You can call me if you want. I'm going to tell you I don't know, because I didn't get it. And I'm going to tell you to contact. We're going to help you get in contact with the lab, which is also on that email. I just took it from down here and blew it up for you. They'll be able to tell you what was wrong with that specimen. There is also, let me try to back up. In the email, it'll tell you, like on this top one, it says alert ID conflict. If you're not sure what that means, you can click on that from the email and it will hyperlink you into our Confluence page, and it shows you the entire list of responses you might get, and you can scroll down to your response and it'll give you more details about what does that response mean that you got. Oftentimes, if a sample comes in and if it doesn't 100% match the packing slip, maybe it's a digit off, we'll call you, we'll resolve that issue, but it's still going to get that status of an alert because there was an alert and they do track. Okay, in case something down the road comes back weird, they'll know, well, there was a problem with the ID when it came in. So we'll still maintain that. Okay? Oftentimes, some studies have a lot of collection events, and we only have so much screen space. And so, especially for AO1106, I get a lot of times, I can't find where to log the surgery blood, I can't find my event. If you look in the corner, there's a little tiny double arrow, and that indicates that there are more collection events on the next page. So you'll click on that, and it'll take you over to more events. So if you don't see the event right away, see if that little double arrow is there. So we're going to go over some specimen labeling. All specimens must be labeled. Do not send them in with nothing on them. Make sure you follow what's listed in the CSM or the protocol for how to label your specimen. So I'm going to see if you guys can get this one for me. Which vial has plasma in it and which vial has serum in it? Anyone? Yeah, I don't know either. Neither does the repository. There's no way of knowing if you send in plasma and serum like this, which one's which. They look the exact same. So, and you might think I'm being silly, but you'd be amazed how many come in like this. So general guidelines for your fluid specimens. 1, always go back to your CSM, always look at the protocol, but in general, most of them will always say, we want to know what study is it, the study ID, so an example would be AO1106 or AFT05, the patient ID, if it's an NCI trial, it's a 912 number, if it's an AFT trial, it could be like A84001-001, so make sure you got the patient ID, the date of collection, what type of specimen is it? Especially if you have to submit plasma and serum in the same shipment, make sure they are labeled which one is serum, which one is plasma. And then which event is that sample being submitted for? Is it baseline, is it cycle 1, day 1? So those are, across most studies, that's what everybody wants to know, but again, some might ask for something more, so make sure you check the protocol and CSM. On vacutainers, most of them have a label and a spot for you to write on them. If that's the case, don't add an extra label to that tube. What happens is if you wrap something around that tube, when the lab goes to process the specimen, it's in the way now. We can't see where the plasma and the buffy coat and the red blood cells are separating. So if your tube has a label on it, just use the one there. Now obviously sometimes they don't, then you can put a label on it, but go the length of the tube kind of like this label is. Don't wrap around on vacutainers. If you pre-label vials, in a lot of kits you'll get small Corning cryo vials to put plasma and serum in, and I totally get like labeling that ahead of time, slapping some stickers on there so you're ready to go. If you do that and you don't use all of your vials, either discard them if you've labeled them or get those labels back off. A lot of times sites will hang on to those extra tubes in case they need one, and then patient number 2 comes in and you submit a vial that says patient number 1 and patient number 2. You're going to get that alert ID conflict because we're going to have to find out, well, which patient is it really? So if you pre-label stuff, either discard it if you don't use it, or make sure you get those labels back off. It'll help prevent issues down the road. You'll get nasty gram emails from the BioMS help desk. Okay? For tissue specimens, this one you're always going to want to go to your CSM and or to the protocol because they have some very specific how they want these labels. Sometimes they will want you to add the patient ID to the block in the slides. Other times they strictly do not. So you definitely want to follow the guidelines of your protocol and CSM. But when you are submitting pathology material, you should always be submitting a de-identified, redacted pathology report. And the reason there's an arrow by should is if it's a core biopsy that was taken on a Friday and embedded into a block over the weekend, obviously that's not a specimen from your pathology department. There wouldn't be a path to send with it. So if it's coming from your pathology department, you have to submit that pathology redacted report with it. You're going to write the study number on top, and you're going to write the patient ID every single page. So in case page number 5 becomes detached, they know who it belongs to, okay? If you need help, if it's for an NCI trial and it's a BioMS question, you can email us. In the protocols, there is an alias you can use to email us. Whoever set that alias, it says like Alliance, I forgot what the email address is. You'll get a bounce back every time you use that because our email address has changed and whoever set that alias up has left, and nobody knows how to change it, apparently. So you'll get a bounce back if you use the alias that's listed in the protocol, but our email is the biomshelp@email.wesel.edu. You can go to our webpage. There's small 2-minute training videos there that cover basically most of what I'm covering today. Or you can give us a call if you want to talk to us. We love to talk to people on the phone. And we will walk you through step by step how to log your specimens. If it's an AFT biomes question, you can get us at aftbiomeshelp@email.wesel.edu. You can call us, or again, you can visit the webpage. If it's a protocol-specific question, there is a different number for that, which I don't know why I didn't put it there, but I didn't. But if you call us, we'll get you to the right person still. So going back to the mobile app that I showed you in the very beginning, since I couldn't, yes?
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
So I wonder if you need like one's supposed to be a frozen specimen or a cold specimen and the other one's not, you're shipping them in the same box. Is that ever an issue?
No, as long as it's a box that has a cold chamber and an ambient chamber. Now, Biomes might, if they didn't tell us, like it's going to be in one box, it might make you make 2 packing slips. You just put both packing slips in the same box. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have more than 1 patient you're sending out, 1 patient per packing slip. The labs do not like it when they get a packing slip this long because sometimes it doesn't organize them real nicely, and like here, here, and here are the specimens for 1 patient, and that's really slows the lab down, and they'll actually email us and say, break this out, and then you're going to get a bunch of nasty gram emails from Biomes because we're going to go in and change all of that information and make individual packing slips per patient. The other thing I didn't mention yet, if your patient unfortunately passes during the trial or withdraws their consent or comes off study for some reason, you need to go into Biomes and mark any remaining specimens as not collected and the appropriate reason. Either they withdrew consent, there's an other in a box you can type a message in. You always want to close that specimen cycle out, otherwise you could get dinged and rave. You're going to start getting emails from us if it goes past the time point it should be submitted. So that way you can stay off anybody's radar. Close those specimens out. You have to go into rave and indicate it happened to the patient too, so make sure you go into Biomes, close everything out. Any other questions before I go on about the app? Okay. I don't know if I can still get it. Some of you guys came in late. I had a hard time getting it to come up in the last session, so since I got it to come up in the beginning of this session, I started with it. I will try to connect to it again real quick. So the idea of the mobile app was to have something in your hand. If you're going to go, you're seeing your patient, you got to collect stuff. It wouldn't bring up the checklist view, but you could pick the study and the time point, and it shows you what you need to collect. It shows you how you should collect it, information such as that. We're going to see if I can. Hold on. Oh, it's still there. All right, let me do some finagling here really quick. Well, almost there. Okay. Okay, so this would be an example of, let me go back 1 screen, sorry. The app, now obviously we got to fix the color schema here because that's impossible to read. So what it would be up here is you could pick which study you wanted to see information about. Then you can pick which time point that you're getting ready to collect specimens for. And then it would show you down here what needs to be collected. So in this case, anything in red would be a mandatory specimen. Anything listed in white is an alternate specimen. And, ooh, it looks like there are no optional specimens for this one. So it would kind of tell you what you need to make sure you got to get. If you needed information about this 9 mils of EDTA plasma you're supposed to get, if you click on this, it will then open up and show you the instructions from the protocol, how to collect that specimen, how to process it, how it's going to be shipped, up top, who it's going to, and how it should be shipped. So that was our initial starting point. Would you guys find this helpful and handy? What is anything else that would make your job easier? Besides me following around logging things for you, which I'm more than willing to come to Hawaii if you need any help there. Let me know. Thoughts? Comments?
Like it.
Awesome. Anything else that you would like? Would it be helpful if you could request kids from this? I need to know what you want. Okay.
Can you put that in the protocol too, to make it easier to find all your stuff in one area?
I wish. The other thing we thought about trying to do was linking, like, so a lot of trials are going to those CSMs now, where all the processing instructions are out of the document. Finding a way to link to that so you could pull the CSM up from this app to have those instructions handy. You can also get that from our Confluence page. All the CSMs are always posted there as well. Okay. Any specific questions you guys want to see on doing something? Is there anything in biomes that you find a pain point or you would like to see as an enhancement? We're always trying to make it better for you guys.
No, that was very helpful.
Good. Yay.
No, really, it does look quite friendly, so.
It can be as long as you're not using IE. If you're using IE, you would like, I hate this app. You'll call me, you will not be happy. And I'll be like, are you using IE? And then they go, yes. So yeah, that's like the biggest thing I can tell you is don't use IE. It's not one of our certified browsers. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Well, that's all I had. So.